Hello and welcome back to Deja Vu, where we rewatch all of the classic TV shows that made TV what it is today. Today we are watching The Andy Griffith Show, Season 1, Episode 3, and it is titled The Guitar Player. It aired October 17th, 1960. The writers are Jack Ellenson and Charles Stewart, and it is directed by Don Weiss. Let's go ahead and get into it and see what it has for us. The show opens up with none other than Jim Lindsay, who we will see back in episode 31, I believe. And he is jamming out on the street. He is in front of the funeral parlor, unfortunately, playing, which creates problems for him because the owner of the funeral parlor, Orville, uh, immediately goes and gets Andy involved because this is against the law. He shouldn't be doing this. I have a private place of business that really doesn't need guitar playing in front of, and Andy inevitably agrees, but he lets him finish his song. And so he disperses the crowd, comes up and has a nice greeting with Jim. They are obviously familiar with each other. And then he promptly says, "Hey, buddy, you're under arrest, but don't worry, there's some good food at the jail today." After this, we are at the jail. Jim is in his cell and Andy's at the door. They're obviously waiting for lunch to come in, but until then, they are playing a song and they are playing New River Train, which is a song that we will hear a lot in this show. And it's a really good song. I enjoy it every time I hear it. They play really well. And if there's anybody who is a guitar expert or just anybody who plays, tell me, is Jim actually playing or is he just feigning playing? Is he acting essentially? I'm assuming that Andy Griffith is playing since he is a musician, but maybe you could enlighten me a little bit on Jim's play there with his hand and see if he's actually doing that. But anyways, they finish out the song. Barney comes up. They really lay it on home, and it's such good music. And then we see the food appear. Aunt B is in this scene for just a split second as she drops off the food, and they start to eat, and it goes back to a scene of just Andy and Jim, and it's supposed to be one of those good moments, but because Andy is trying to mentor Jim, and he's trying to tell him, wouldn't he's watching him eat, and the camera angles clearly play that he's watching him eat because he's eating like he doesn't eat very often that well, and so he's automatically assuming, Jim, maybe you should try to do something with your life, and he tries to talk him into it because he's a talented guitar player and he could do something with his life. And Jim is very hesitant. He has no self confidence. He downplays himself every time that Andy tries to help him. And then it's hard to tell if he did it on purpose, but he starts just throwing stuff in his mouth to end the conversation, essentially. And Andy gets mad. He gets up and he walks away and slams the door shut. Next, we get a little lightheartedness to break from that previous scene of anger, where we find the Mayberry postman Talbot is kind of having a little back and forth with Barney. It's about the hanging of wanted posters. And the really good part of this scene, which is why Don Knotts is the master, is that he can just do anything with it. And he can automatically bring some comedy into it by just popping off whenever he wants to. And then all of a sudden it looks like he's good, and then he can pop off again. And his facial expressions are just fantastic. And I don't remember if we see Talbot much anymore. I don't think we do. But the man who plays him, Dub Taylor, he does a really good job. He stays in Barney's face. He matches everything that he puts out, and it works really well. And Andy, of course, this is maybe where we start to see him playing the straight man a little bit because he just kind of plays interference a little bit here. So next we run over and we see at the restaurant because they see them pull up. There's a band of music players showing up there, led by Bobby Fleet, who's played by Henry Slate. And I gotta be honest, in this scene, he annoys the hell out of me because he is just obnoxious. Now, granted, he's supposed to be, so he plays the part really well. However, he's demeaning and he cracks every joke he can about either Mayberry itself or the people that he runs into, including Andy and Barney there. And when Andy tries to let him know, hey, man, I got somebody you might be interested in, of course, he's not going to take him seriously, and he doesn't. And he just really dismisses him. And you just see Andy get this look of disgust, and they walk out. So, like I said, I'm not a big fan of Bobby Fleet in this scene. However, because I'm not a big fan of him in this scene, that means he played it well. After they leave there, Barney is hot under the collar because he doesn't like the way that they were treated, and Andy ends up with a little bit of an idea, and they arrest these people. Well, they actually bring them over to the jail first for a fine for parking. However, during the back and forth between Andy and Bobby, which is quite hilarious, they are able to work Bobby into wanting to stay 24 hours because the fine has gotten so high. And so it works perfectly out for Andy here. He gets them to do exactly what he wants them to do, and Bobby thinks that he's gotten one over on Andy. And all we end up with is them in jail here so that they can soon run into Jim. We don't really get an idea of how much time passes before the next scene. However, Opie comes into the jail looking for his dad. Looks like he just got out of school or something. And I really enjoy these early episodes of season one where I still think that Opie is not a very good child actor at this point. He's very loud, everything is over exaggerated, and I love it. I almost like it better than when he gets better at his job. So he has this interaction with Bobby Fleet, and Bobby proceeds to say something about his dad in front of him. And besides from the banter that they have back and forth, which is really good, Opie decides to give him a good kick right to the shin, and it's hilarious and it's well timed, good physical comedy. And then we have Barney right after he comes in from his mission that Andy has set him on to bring Jim back in here. And he brings Jim in on some trumped up thing of needing to question him. And of course, Andy lays onto him a fake charge so that they can arrest him. And as soon as he gets him near the cell, he's got his guitar on him. And Bobby Fleet is immediately suspicious and he says, "Look, I don't have time for this hick stuff. I'm not going to listen to this guy," which of course gets Jim hot under the collar. So even though Jim is pretty pissed off right here, Andy tricks him into playing for these guys, and he kind of feigns that he can't figure out how to tune the guitar, and so as Jim is trying to tune it, these guys are just hassling him, especially the leader Bobby Fleet, and it's a weird scene when you watch it. If you're a fan of the Twilight, or not the Twilight Zone, if you're a fan of the original Star Trek, they have a close up on Jim's face and of Bobby Fleet, and it's very reminiscent of the way they look. The only thing missing is the shadows from the lighting. I don't remember this going on very often on this show, if at all. I mean, this has got to be the only one that comes to mind just because it's so recent for me watching it now. But so, anyways, this goes through. Jim gets really mad and he starts showing them what he's got. He plays. They enjoy it, and they end up offering him a gig, which Andy helps to kind of get him a little bit more money, I think, than he would have gotten. And so the episode ends with them everybody leaving on a happy note. Jim tries to kind of have a maybe an apology for Andy, and Andy just really shoos him out the door. Man, I think that the point there being that he didn't want him to change his mind. Like, "Look, you've committed to this. Go be somebody." So if you like what you've been hearing, please don't forget to subscribe. And I just want to end here with the cast notes as our regulars of Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, Ron Howard, and Francis Bavier, who only is in there for a few minutes. James Best plays Jim Lindsay. Henry Slate is Bobby Fleet. Dub Taylor is our postman Talbot. Now, my favorite scene from this episode, usually I would lean more towards the music. However, the few times that there was only one time of singing, and it was really short. I got to say that my favorite scene is the interaction of Opie and Bobby Fleet right before he kicks him in the shin. Really good scene. Love it when Opie gets really into something like that. I have a new scoring system that I'm starting out here. We're calling it Mayberry After Midnight, and it's a 1 through 5 system of clovers. You'll recognize that from later episodes in the show. So 1 being I would turn the channel if it was on, and 5, I loved it. Perfect episode. So where would I put this one at? I would have to say that I'm going to put this at a 3. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's okay. It's still a good episode. I'd watch it. But that's about where I would put it at. And, in this episode, we see a really good lesson in the fact that in order to accomplish anything, you've got to believe in yourself first. And if you're lucky enough, you have somebody like Andy in your life who helps to encourage that. But in the end, you do have to take a step. This was a really great episode, and I hope you take the time to go and watch it. And I also hope you take the time to join me on later reviews. Thank you very much. Have a good day.